budgeting purposes by email.
For budgeting purposes.
And then next week we can just vote in public that we like this direction and with this small changes is what we're going to do. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I don't want to slow down the staff any more than I already have with all of this research. And plus they broke the internet today. Did they tell you that?
Must be the day for it. And you guys aren't on Fairpoint.
No. But they might have been able to break Fairpoint too.
Really? Wow.
Anyway, we're good. I would like to talk about, since time does allow, I would like to talk about warrant articles. And rather than print 75 sheets of paper, how would you like to be read to? Because I've got 19 of them at the moment. You guys good with this? So Article 2 is the one that's always the operating budget. And it's not very controversial because it will not be any more than 3% above what it was last year by statute. The only change I made in Article 2 was I added, and I've done this to most of them, I've added a way there's two ways to fund Article 2, and we can do both, or one or the other. We can fund it entirely from 2016 taxation. We can fund it in part from unassigned fund balance from 2015, or any combination thereof that we choose to do. I have not put numbers in those blanks. That is for the selectmen to do until 5 minutes after the February meeting starts, and then it's yours. But we have an obligation to put numbers in there that we think are reasonable, prudent.
We're going to try to get the deficit budget by next week.
The default budget.
Default budget, deficit, default budget.
And for the capital reserve articles, I simply took the recommendation of Glenn's group from capital improvement plans, and I treated them exactly the same way with a slight wrinkle. So I'll just read the first one. The rest of the capital reserve ones, I'll just give you the amount and the topic, and you'll see where I'm going with this. So shall the town of Alstead vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 to be added to the bridge capital reserve fund previously established in some year. Some amount of dollars to come from the unassigned fund balance as of December, and some amount to be raised by taxation. So that's the plan for all of the capital reserve input formats. Some amount from taxation, some amount from unassigned fund balance. Clear? There's a couple of blank books back there. Could I help expand on this any?
Thoughts?
It's the voters' call. It's not it's the selectmen.
Is that a for sure?
The selectmen propose and the voters dispose.
Yeah, it's just what we're throwing out there to start the conversation going.
But how much money is in fund balance right now?
About $750,000.
It's set at 750.
And that's more than was last year, right?
Not by much.
And last year you funded all the articles through fund balance.
Except for one, because the bridge failed, the
Right.
town hall failed.
Right.
So that was new money raised, which was about $66,000 of new money raised last year. The rest was from fund balance.
So we are where we were last year at this time, as far as fund balance. When you got 100 and some odd thousand we expect to underspend this year, that will go into fund balance.
No, we aren't got 160,000. I don't believe under.
Nobody knows what that number is.
Well, it depends how fast these guys spend.
We're going to be underspent.
We're spending pretty fast.
We will, by statute, be underspent. The revelation of that number will occur sometime after the close of business in January. So we'll have that number when we need it. We won't have it in December.
So with the money that was appropriated from the fund balance last year, that deducted from the $750,000, but then we funded the fund balance from last year because we were underspent. Okay, and it came out to be basically a wash.
You got it.
So what you're now saying is you're taking, I think it was the same number last year, 25,000. I think that was the one. So you're going, so that's fine. That sounds like an appropriate way to go from my perspective.
One selectman, and I won't speak for these guys, but I'm going to advocate that we spend down the fund balance because its tax is already collected and we shouldn't be hanging on to it. But I'm not going to look ways to spend it. There's a way to use fund balance to reduce your taxes in 16.
Is it a mindset of the board to reduce taxes by utilizing part of that balance, or the underspend from this year? I had heard it is not, that it was voted to not fund a tax reduction.
That would have been for this year.
No, that was the last year.
No,
Those are two different questions.
A couple of meetings, I understand. I mean, I wasn't
That
here.
wasn't
I know,
recent.
that's all right, but those are two different questions. This board was unable to reach a decision on using unassigned fund balance to reduce the tax bill you just got. We were essentially deadlocked.
Right.
I suspect we will find that this board is more readily coming to an agreement on using that same fund balance in the 2016 operation. So it will have the effect of reducing your December 16 bill.
So one of your proposals in your mind, because you said you had several, right, would be a reduction, or would be using some of the fund balance to reduce future taxes.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, that's one way. I'll just throw my 2 cents out, and this is me speaking philosophically as one person. We have to pay for certain things in the town. We have operating expenses that come under Article 2, and we've got to fund that. And then we have the items that go on warrant articles, which one can argue some of those things we absolutely have to spend on. We do have to have a working bridge, for example, or we may have to have a working fire truck. Those are probably things we can all agree that we need. We can fight about the details and things like that. But I look at that fund balance, I see $750,000 that's been taken from you that you've not received anything for. And before I ask to take anything more from you, because unfortunately that's my crappy job, I want to make sure that we're spending that down. So whether you and I agree exactly on how that looks or things like that, philosophically, I think.
We will agree close enough.
Yeah.
Complete this document and hand it over to the voters, I guarantee that.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what our goal is to come up with something palatable, something that some thought's been put into, that we can present to the town meeting, and you guys actually know.
So we would expect to have a recommendation in January at the budget hearing. So we want to apply
Yeah.
$200,000 of fund balance to Article 2. At that point, there's a discussion. It's a hearing. We hear what the people in the room are interested in. We may or may not act on that. But whatever the people are interested in doing in February is what's going to be on the ballot. There's no ambiguity about that. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a better process, I think, because the three of us understand it better than we did last year. And we have a significant amount of money that essentially we've saved over the years. That's an asset
I'm sorry.
that we have failed to spend through either good luck or excellent management. Take your pick.
I was just thinking the phrase stolen from you, put in our pocket,
Well,
kept from you.
Well, it's true that people do like to think of this as sitting in a paper bag under Linda's desk,
It's a nice
like they
glove
used to
bag.
do it in Ackworth, but we're not doing that here.
It's a nice glove bag with all that action.
So,
remember it's taxes.
Highway Capital Reserve Fund proposed number, regardless of where it comes from, is $145,000.
These numbers are status, if you want to maintain the level that you're at right now, it's not, I don't want to use, you use the word that's something I recommend, it's not. It is numbers that are derived from keeping the equipment that we have at the same level we are.
Okay, well, that would be exactly the recommendation I would ask for this kind of process. What maintains the world as we understand it? And that's what these numbers come out of. Let the math do the talking. $10,000 added to the Transfer Station Capital Reserve Fund. $80,000 to the Fire Department Capital Reserve Fund. $15,000 to the Library Capital Reserve Fund. $50,000 to the Ambulance Capital Reserve Fund. $10,000 to the Police Department Capital Reserve Fund. And that's the end of warrant articles that might put money into capital reserve funds. Now we start doing stuff, and we may elect to take money out of capital reserve funds, or we may not. We being everybody in the room in February and March. Article 10, shall we raise and appropriate the sum of $250,000 to complete the paving of Walpole Valley Road and pave March Hill? X amount of dollars to come from unassigned fund balance, and X to be raised by new taxation. Article 11, raise and appropriate sum of $10,000 to strike the paved roads, X from unassigned fund balance, X from new taxation. Article 12, raise and appropriate, here's one, raise and appropriate the sum of $500,000 to purchase a combination pumper rescue truck substantially consistent with the specifications published on 2 November 2015. Some number of dollars to come from the Fire Department Capital Reserve Fund, which has $394,000 in it today.
I'm afraid if we had 494, they'd want a $600,000.
This is why we discuss these things.
One quick thing on the fire truck, just for some thought on, is that there's a possibility if we do order it, we may not get it the same year, so that the warrant article would have to be written so that it would go over another year.
No, not true.
Quite a bit of time.
True.
Not true. We sought legal advice from 2 sources on this, and they amazingly enough agreed.
I can carry it.
You can carry it over,
They
okay? I've just seen that word in warrant articles.
You will note that this does not say a new fire truck. This says a fire truck that fits the specification, substantially agrees with the specifications developed by the committee.
That's the committee I've been on.
So, and this is one where we have three potential sources of, three potential sources of funding for this article. One is capital reserve, one is unassigned fund balance, and one is 2016 taxation. It'll be up to the voters to decide if any of those buckets, what amounts go into those buckets. And that decision will be made in February. Clear as mud?
Or whether it would be approved at all.
That decision will occur in March. Although I suppose in February the voters could set this to 0. My expectation is that that will not happen, but you never know. Seems anti-democratic to me, but that's just an opinion. Madame?
So where did you get the $500,000 put there? I guess I couldn't quite hear. Did that come from the committee, 500,000?
Pretty much. We'll have bids before January 5th.
Yeah,
So we'll have real numbers at that point.
the committee's, we're trying to get bids.
No, the committee will get bids. The return date is
I'm on the committee, that's why I'm wondering.
January
where the
4th.
$500,000
Yeah.
mark came from.
That's just a placeholder. Please don't let it frighten you. I can put 200,000 in there if you want.
Okay.
All in favor?
You won't get a fire truck.
So, Article 13 is this little bit of road work left over from some flooding. It's called the Bell Hill Project. We don't have a price on it yet, but we have been, FEMA gave us $6,000.
And that is currently in not unassigned, but assigned fund balance.
It's money that we're obligated to either spend as
Right.
with a match
Right.
or return. And our match would be 20%. So we're in the pricing phase. If this job, I've looked at it, and I'm not convinced the job needs to be done at all, but certainly it would be a project that would add to the longevity of a particular stretch of road. So if we could do it for small money, then I would recommend that we do it. But without a price, I don't have much to say. Bell Hill is the stretch of road over Darby Brook above the 2 temporary bridges, where the hill is sliding down into China.
It's going to cost a lot more to fix it.
Well, this is probably not where that debate will take place. So the Highway Department asked that we put a warrant article on here to raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to purchase an equipment trailer that, again, some of that money could come from capital reserve, some from taxation, and some from fund balance. Yes, sir.
David and I have also talked about just having that, put in that in his budget, and finding cuts otherwhere, otherwise, in his, other places in his budget to absorb it in his budget and take it out the warrant.
We're certainly open to that. I think we would prefer that if it can be done.
That's the last conversation I had with David, was to do something like that.
The cemetery trustees asked that we raise and appropriate a sum of $5,000 to repair stone walls in town cemeteries.
And that's probably gonna be the rough cemetery.
Unspecified at this moment. Some number of dollars could come from unassigned fund balance and some from taxation. They also asked that we write an article to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to repair stone walls on the Millet Green, and there is a price coming for that from at least one contractor to make that number more realistic.
There's two, one for dry stone, regular stone, and one for concrete.
Article 17, shall the town of Alstead vote to raise and appropriate the sum of X dollars to design and specify replacements for the two red-listed bridges over Darby Brook. Some number of money to come from fund balance and some number of money to come from taxation. And I will have a proposal from at least one engineering firm with a dollar figure attached before the January meeting. Yes, sir.
Article 16, Town Hall Capital Reserve. Is that the new Town Hall Capital Reserve that we got into semantics on last year, if you recall? So is this saying you want to discontinue that new Town Hall Capital Reserve and put it in the capital fund?
I see Article 16 involving stone walls.
Oh, maybe I gave him a wrong copy.
18, shall the town of Alstead vote to discontinue the town hall capital reserve fund established in 2009? Said funds with accumulated interest, the date of withdrawal to be transferred to the municipality's general fund.
And the voters were very hot to have that on the warrant last year. I don't know how my brother selectmen feel about it. But if there's support for this concept at this meeting, that would help us a little bit. It was really important last year.
Yeah, the wording was completely different last year, based on a recommendation from the legal association, if you recall. And it was confusing.
Yeah.
And it was very confusing. I think it was just confusing. Let's leave it alone at that. So if this does the same thing,
Just returns the money back to general fund.
It doesn't return it to anything, but in essence, it would be doing the same thing.
So we're inclined to leave this on here at least for now?
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that. And remember, folks, that the language, whatever I write, it might not survive the legal review process. And Bob's absolutely right. Sometimes, especially warrant articles involving zoning and planning and stuff come back and they're clearly written in some language that we do not speak, and it's entirely possible for honest and thoughtful and well-educated people to read it exactly wrong and wind up voting for something they didn't want. It's the selectman's job to try to clarify that with a letter before March that says, if you want this to happen, then you should vote this way on this warrant article when the language is ambiguous.
but my only point was the semantics. I think the capital reserve fund specifies the new town hall.
Yeah, it has to have new on it.
It has to have new on it.
That was
That's
part
my
of
only point,
it.
because that came up last year.
And the last one I have here, also requested, and somewhat controversial, is to see if the town will agree to permit Fall Mountain Food Shelf Friendly Meals to build a 50 by 100 foot structure on the Bragg Lane property and to provide parking for up to some number of cars.
How many of those iterations do you have?
And because this isn't a money article, the selectmen don't actually have to take a position on it. And if we decide to leave it off, I'm about 99% certain it'll get on there by petition, and I'm okay with that too. Comments, concerns? Wow.
Is there still an open date for petitions?
Yes.
It's on your refrigerator, on that yellow card.
I haven't read on my mail.
So I guess my question is on that food shelf warrant article, it's very, very vague.
That's deliberate.
Okay.
There is a very active committee that is supposed to be developing a specific plan. Here's what we want to do, and here's how it would work.
Okay.
They're not done, and they may not be done in time for the warrant. Yes, ma'am?
My concern is that the taxpayers of the town are not paying for it.
Very paid for the land.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be hard for me to predict the outcome of a very simple up or down vote townwide in support of the food shelf / friendly meals program. I think there's a lot of support in this town for that program.
Then maybe they could do it by petition.
They certainly can, and that sounds like that might be your recommendation.
That would be my recommendation.
It's not controversial for me, but I can certainly respect people who find this unsettling as a misuse of publicly generated funds. Private charity, blah, blah, blah.
So all three of you, or at least two of you, would have to agree that that would make it on the warrant.
Right.
As supported by the select.
And let's just stop and take a breath here right now and get that last date for petition warrant articles out loud and in the minutes again. Because I haven't memorized it,
I haven't either.
but it's on the wall in the back room where we keep all that stuff. And it's also on that yellow card that we sent out 4 weeks ago.
I think it's the 14th of January.
No,
I just heard that was January.
it is January, don't listen to her. It's a January date, we haven't tripped over it yet. Yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question, because I thought, and maybe I'm wrong, when Louis was here, he had said that there would be other towns putting a similar warrant article on to their vote as well.
He believed at that meeting, if I heard him correctly, that Langdon would in all likelihood do the same thing.
So what happens if both places, say they both agree, what happens? You have bill two, or, I mean, what,
Well, we do have two now. I don't know the answer to your question. I suspect it's unlikely that either of them will pass in this environment. But we can't bet on that.
well, I was just wondering if there's another town putting a warrant article on as well.
We don't know that, but we know that
I mean,
at
if they
least
go,
the committee intends for Langdon to. But again, it's up to the selectmen until February.
And we will know by then.
yeah, I would be very, not like the fact to have an ambiguous warrant article about that is not clear as to what it's doing and how much it's costing.
I would encourage you to wait until the committee has had a chance to go a little further down the road. I completely support your concern. But this week, I'm in the process of making placeholders, not policy. And this is a placeholder. Let's call it that. Bobby, you had your hand up.
I sat down with a lady who is on the food shelf, friendly meals board, and went to a Langdon meeting, and she said it definitely looked like they have found property in Langdon, and that there would be a warrant up to purchase it. But she was also stating she understand Alstead was going to have it. And I asked her, I said, so what happens if both of them pass? And she said, well, then we would figure out what would be the one to take that would be most reasonable for the food shelf, because they would have to be paying for utilities and they'd have grant writers to try to get for the buildings and stuff. So that's just what I heard the other day when the conversation.
I certainly agree that time is very short for that group, and most of the data that I've gotten from that committee has been a work in progress and not good enough to build public policy on. There is apparently a cogent explanation for that. They're different invoice numbers.
Is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
See right here.
So, that's all I've got.
Two.
Is there anybody in the room who's got a warrant article that they wish we had put on there?
Well, I know you do it in your truck, or,
Yeah.
so that's the only one that might be on there.
Is This was a tough discussion we had some weeks ago about lease buy. And again, we're not quite ready to turn it into numbers,
Right,
but we need to be ready
pretty soon.
pretty soon. What's the date on petition warrant articles?
Friday, January
8th, Friday the 8th. You heard it here first. Petition warrant articles. And the number of signatures?
25.
25. We sound like we are pretty sure about that.
Yeah, definitely am.
8th. And I always add a couple extras because we have
Well,
to
we
check it.
want to.
Yeah.
Just to make sure.
Right.
So everybody clear about that? How are we doing for time?
I just got a couple quick,
Oh.
you got a minute. When you're done with that, something.
Well, I've got to save some spots for John Mann to talk about energy. So can you be succinct?
Oh, absolutely. Police cruiser, we need to, number one, clean it out. There's still stuff at the old one. Also, the police needs to be removed off it. I'm not sure.
I think it'd be more valuable if we left it on.
Well, unfortunately, you can't sell them. So, because if the highway department's busy, I could probably get, like a body shop like Kmitch's to probably remove it. Probably like an hour's labor, probably $45, $75 to have them remove that. I can verify that number, but that's about what the going rate would be. They could remove at least the police off there.
That's what we did with the last one. It seemed to please everyone.
Yeah. On that.
So you want to put them on the new one?
I don't know if they're that good, you take them off.
Duct tape
The
them back on.
rubber wheel just kind of peels them right off, so. I know David is, since he's here, which is good, you're gonna be buying culverts and chloride?
I don't know about chloride, because I don't have much of a place to put it, but
Okay.
culverts definitely.
All right, because the year's almost over, I think you were talking about 12 grand or something around that area, on that. Last but not least is, we've been paying for this electronic time clock that you've been monitoring, but we've seen no data from it. So when can we expect some data from that?
We'd like to go live on the first of the year. You can see data anytime you want to talk to me.
Okay.
Because I've got about a year's worth.
Okay.
The highway department, with a bunch of glitches and burps and stuff, has been very cooperative.
So what do I need to do, send you an email or
That would be good.
flog you?
You can plug me, but
Okay.
on your own time.
Okay. That's it for me.
Madam?
I just have a quick question for Linda. In years past, I know we didn't last year send out town reports. What is the expense of town reports to the town, roughly?
Around, if I get enough to send out to the town, because I was gonna cut back again, because we had quite a few left over, because people didn't pick them up. To send them out is all about $500.
Right, that's all? I thought it was more. Anyway,
No.
what my concern is that I've heard from other people, I don't know if anybody else has heard anything, that a lot of people didn't feel like they were informed last year by not having them delivered to their home. They didn't have time to read them, to talk to people, to discuss stuff. Have we thought about resending, putting them back out so people?
I thought about it, and the reason we stopped is because I went up to the post office the day they got there, and there were 400 of them in the recycle bin, for which we paid, I don't know, $1.25
Yeah.
a piece. So,
We pay over
here's,
$1,000.
Well, I'm just.
no, here's the deal. If you want us to mail you one, all you gotta do is call, stop by, send us an email. How about that?
Well, no, I don't, I personally, but there's a lot of people that, this is just. what
Tell
I've
those people.
Heard from people.
Call. Right.
Yeah.
Stop by. I can't see the sense in throwing 400 of those away. And Linda's right, we've got 400 without postage on them from last year. There's not as much interest as there perhaps ought to be. We can publish it electronically, so people can get it for free. People could have a hard copy by simply asking for it. We will mail it to their home, whatever state it's in.
I think also we made sure that there was a supply at the store, and I always made sure that there was a supply at the transfer station.
You almost said dump, didn't you?
I did, at the transfer station. So for people just to pick them up, or people would ask for them when they came.
But the hard part about that is, if you tell people to call or whatever, I have to have an idea of how many I'm gonna get. See, before her,
I don't, I just, several people had mentioned to me, and then I had heard from other people that they felt they weren't informed because they didn't get it, whether they couldn't come down here,
They could always call,
Yeah.
always.
I think when you send out your little blurbs or something, you could make a notation on there that the town is no longer sending the town reports, because some people didn't even realize they were going to be mailed.
That's a
Unless
great
you
idea, Marge,
requested it.
and I think what we'll do is try to get the ABC to put that on their
Yeah, on one of their
report.
little postcards, so that people know they have to request it.
unless requested.
Yeah,
But then that also leaves me, what happens if I have 700 requests and I only got 500?
First come, first served.
yeah, first come, first served.
You can always print them again.
It might cost you more to do it. Here's my
If
question.
people want to be informed, we need to spend the money to inform them.
And what it is people don't realize, we have to have that the week before voting. That's the deadline, and that's when we
Try
get
it,
that.
try it when you're.
So if I don't get it in the mail, the reason why it's only $400 to send it out is because we send it out bulk. So it's gonna cost me almost $2 to send each one individually.
But we've got 400 that people didn't need sitting in the office. So if we do a better job of publicizing their availability, and we buy 200 less than we bought last year, I bet we're gonna be okay.
And put it on the town.
Put it on the town website digitally, and,
I'd give them one option, pick them up in the office if you want.
well, we did that, and it didn't seem to be very successful, at least anecdotally. We're out of time. John? Why are you here?
Why am I here? Well,
Because we have a non-public that starts in 45 seconds. No pressure.
no pressure. Oh, that's really something. I come in here every once in a while, talk about energy, and I decided I'd make a list of things that I would do if I were doing energy efficiency in these buildings. There's a few little things for the library, the town hall here, several things. The East Alstead Fire Station uses a lot of energy. And I was in there yesterday, the temperature is 64, thermostat was set at 65, there's a kitchen and another set of rooms there for emergencies, I guess, that was 65. People may go in there once a week, I don't know how often they go in for meetings. So, the programmable thermostats cost, anywhere from $50 to $200. There's a lot of little things, and I got this long list, and I'd like to start working on them. There's a bunch for this building too. Haven't done anything for quite a while. We did, I started with the library with the same kind of stuff, small, cheap things that, make money right off the bat. So I'd just like to know, what kind of a process should we go through so that I can get some money to do this, so I get approvals, people know what I'm doing, what sort of process should this be? If I were asking for money, I'd ask for about $2,000 as a sort of a bucket, and I would be responsible for it, and I'd report the expenses. But you'd be trusting me to, without any authorization other than
Your fault.
I think the way for you to proceed is to make sure the selectmen get a copy of that list. We'll remember the number 2,000 when we make our final pass through the budget.
Yeah.
And we won't talk anymore about detail. The other thing that nobody in this room knows except me is that I finally found a carpenter who was willing to work for us, project manager, and he needs a copy of that list to add to the list that I've already given him of stuff that needs to be done. Thanks to Glenn and some others. And daunting list, but the journey of 1,000 miles and the single step and all that. So,
The door for out in the out here has been boarded.
see, stuff happens, but very, very slowly.
Does that come out of general maintenance and repair?
Money.
We have a line for that, and we've underspent it consistently over the years, and you can tell by looking at our building.
The other thing I was thinking, it's probably too late this year, but if we were ever at a place where we had like a significant energy audit of all town buildings, and we had a number, and it was a $20,000 investment that should return, pay for itself over the next 5 years or whatever. Couldn't that be on a warrant? I know we're not there.
Energy audit?
Yeah, well, if we had the results of some sort of an audit, or we had a list of improvements that we wish to have.
One of this and one of the fire station.
Well,
Oh,
the
yeah,
library is
the
the one,
library.
it's the big one, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, could those be put together on a, shall the town raise and appropriate these funds?
It could.
Yeah.
And maybe we task John with taking a swing at that warrant article number 20. Take those 3 energy audits, which did have some financial information in them, it's getting a little stale. Take those 3, pile them together, come up with a number, and we'll turn it into a warrant article for you. I think, I bet we would, I bet 2 of us would anyway, without a blink.
Okay.
There's certainly plenty of interest in building maintenance and energy savings in this town.
I would think because it's in different buildings, it still would just go, we never use the money in the building. It's stupid to put it on a warrant article. We should be using it every year.
It's a good thing she doesn't vote in this town, isn't it?
No, but,
I think the budget committee's been working on that, having, they
right,
want each department to kind of, what needs to be done, to
Right.
start working on this instead of the money just being appropriated and not being spent. Hey, they're gonna fall down. you
It's
know.
rare that we're criticized by the voters for not spending money.
Well, maintenance is really a big problem.
because it's all, it's your infrastructure.
It's gonna cost you more next year.
Right.
All year after that.
Like Carol said, you build new buildings and we're not taking care of our old. Right.
What did we build now?
No, Carol said we're looking at building new buildings and we're not taking care of our old buildings. The money goes back, into fund balance every year, and little things should be done for you.
You know, we do try to get people to give us bids.
We
It
have-
is like pulling teeth.
We have come to the end of the public portion of this meeting. Are there other comments or questions from you folks before we chase you out into the cold?
So we'll do one more week on the wages.
Yep, one more payroll.
No, I mean, the raises, because we need that to put our,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't